do when you're stuck at home during the pandemic? Well, if you have two EQ pedals, you mod one of them. See what happens. Welcome to the pandemic. So today we have the Boss GE7, one of the most ubiquitous EQ boost pedals ever. This one's very much stock, very much used. Today we are going to be installing the Frommel Electronics upgrade kit. Okay, here's the back cover open. Try and gain access to the business side of the PC board. If you have the older version, you will have what's called the ACA power supply, which has a diode and a resistor that you can just jump, and then you can use a standard AC adapter. This would be a good time to do something like that if you need to. We'll find out here real quick if this is that version or not. And this is what it looks like. So we'll be freeing up. Let's take these jacks loose so we can get a little more exposed to the PC board there. That's what she looks like. All dressed up and nowhere to go. Looks like we're going to be replacing some ICs and some components. We're going to do them one at a time. And I'll just be pausing the video here and there as we go through and go step by step via the Frommel instructions. I hope I'm saying that Frommel correctly. Wish me luck. Okay, so we took this jumper loose. This is, I think that says P7 right here on the board, just to gain a little more play on the board, expose things a little bit better. I'm not going to show any of Frommel's literature in the video, just because, well, likely copyrighted. That's their intellectual property. Yada yada yada. Their instructions very straightforward. Not a whole lot to this kit. It's mainly just replacing one-for-one components. Let's start with some caps. So things are pretty straightforward. Just starting in the top left, sort of arbitrarily, C11. See if I can get the camera to focus. This guy right here. Awfully convenient of Boss to mark everything for us on the board itself. So this is C11 right here. Flip it over. It's going to be these two contacts right here. When I'm desoldering, I prefer to use solder braid for small little jobs like this. So a lot of times you can just pop your soldering iron with the solder braid onto the lead and suck that solder right on out of there, just like magic. Now, if you have a little trouble, or say you have a through hole, for some reason it's not giving you what you need, what you can do, and this sounds a little counterintuitive, is actually add a little bit of solder. Heat it up, And then draw that solder out of there again. You can see it working its way right up the braid. Everybody's happy. The other method, of course, is the Soldapult, or the solder sucker. I'll show you that method. It's this bad boy here, which looks, in the video, is going to look like 100 times overkill, but this is how it works. And usually you want to add a little bit of solder. You're not really adding solder here. What you're actually doing is adding a little bit of flux to make the solder flow a little bit better. Make sure you got it nice and hot, and boom. You actually have to conk it and hit the button, and it sucks solder right up through the nozzle as such. Let's see. And the part comes right out. Yeah, you can see we're having a little bit of an issue, so we'll widen the stance a little bit. Like so. There we go, like a glove. And on the other side, I'll usually bend him around a little bit so he doesn't move around while you're trying to re-solder. Da-da-da-da-da. A little bit of added solder here. Don't stay on them too long. These little tiny parts are easy to damage with too much heat. Get rid of the extra leads. Make sure these extra leads do not fall back into your pedal for obvious reasons. At the end, that little bit of flux left over there, I'll grab a Q-tip and some alcohol and just go over the whole board and clean that off. And that will help ensure that it doesn't accumulate dust, particles, anything untoward that you don't need lurking on your PC board. Okay, so that's one. You know, there's a dozen or so more parts to change. I will show you what it looks like. Okay, just removing the ICs now. Once again, desoldering with the solder braid. Now, another thing you can do is actually start applying heat and then apply a little bit of solder. See that? How it just pops right up into the braid after it gets the proper amount of flux. Flux makes everything flow much better. And that is the whole name of the game. Is making that solder flow. The proper amount of flux and making sure your braid isn't overloaded. Just make it magically go right where you want it to go. There you go. Got all the capacitors removed now. I'm working on the ICs, and like a good neighbor, Frommel has sent sockets for the ICs. You'll notice these are directly soldered right onto the circuit board. What we're going to be replacing those with is, of course, an upgraded IC, but they'll be mounted onto a socket rather than directly onto the board. So if you ever need to change them again, all you have to do is pop them out and pop them back in. ICs are polarized. You'll notice right here, a little dot. That's for orientation. The IC socket will have a little notch, and usually we make that correspond with the dot. That's sort of industry standards. When we put the new ones back in. Oh, see you in a minute. Alright, and this is actually one of my favorite parts, is cleaning up the flux afterwards. Let's see. Yep. Use plenty of alcohol and a Q-tip. It just looks so much nicer afterwards. And so I've been told flux buildup can, years down the road, even cause arcing. If there's too much of it built up and it gets old, it can actually get conductive. But I know it can certainly attract and hold dust and other particles and other nastiness that you just don't want on your PC board, and that includes cotton fibers from the Q-tip even. So don't forget to clean that off as well when you're finished cleaning up all the excess flux. There's our sockets, all nice and pretty. There's our new ICs, all nice and pretty. That's what she looks like when she's all said and done. So I'm gonna button her all back up. Be sure to replace my jumper. Put it all back together, and we will hook it up, see what it sounds like. Okay, here's dry, straight into the amp. Unmodded version. Here's the modded version. You hear a pretty significant difference in noise. Just for the sake of fairness, we'll flatten the EQs. Crank the volumes all the way up. Unmodded. Modded. It's significantly quieter. Dry. That was pretty poor audio quality, but it was just for comparing the two. The mod was definitely worth doing. It was significantly quieter, and you can't really hear it on the cell phone video, but it did, you know, added a little something something. Friend, what did you think? I don't think he cares.